Good evening, morning, afternoon, I guess wherever you are. Welcome everybody to Dads for Truth with your host John and Ray. The mantra here is where truth and honesty meet false narratives and the disingenuous. So we want truth and honesty at all times. So if you disagree, do it respectfully. We all can be hotheads sometimes. We all can be passionate, but let's be respectful too. So I do my best, but I'm not always perfect. So but let's enjoy the debate and conversation. So I've got three good ones, John, for you. Again, John, I'm Ray. Basically, I got two or three good ones for you, and it's all relates to. Well, let's just play it, and the first one.
Whenever you say that, I know this is going to be interesting and fun.
Oh yeah. So all right. So here we go.
All right.
I'll be sharing some screen here in a second, and go. Boom.
Now to IT Mate and a 75-year-old substitute teacher who says he was assaulted by a student earlier this month. He's sharing his story now because he says the student was never arrested. IT Mate's Cody Fisher sat down with the teacher who tells his side of the story.
Before Rob Gooding was taken by ambulance from Perry Meridian High School to the hospital, he told school police he wanted to press charges. Nearly a month later, the student still hasn't been charged. Anything like this ever happened?
No.
Rob Gooding started substitute teaching after he retired. He was in the middle of teaching a business class at Perry Meridian High School when a student attacked him.
I saw him come up and he says, "I've had it." And he came down and I blocked the cologne book. That's where that hole went. And it shoved me down like this. And then all of a sudden, he hovered over me and with his left hand, whammed me.
The assault left him with a severe black eye.
This man-child, he was 6'2", 280 pounds.
When paramedics arrived, Gooding said a district police officer was by his side. Immediately you said, "I want to press charges."
Yes. He said to me, "We have been instructed by the higher-ups, which is the district, not to handcuff or arrest the kid." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Yes, that came from the higher-ups."
In a statement, Perry Township Schools said, "We are disturbed by the allegations involving a Kelly Services employee and student at Perry Meridian High School. Perry police responded to the incident quickly. A police report was forwarded to the Marion County Prosecutor's Office. Prosecutors will then make a criminal charge decision. Due to confidentiality reasons, Perry Township Schools cannot comment on disciplinary action it takes against its students. We can say, however, the district has zero tolerance for violence."
They have not
So
I don't even. Okay, you want to talk hypocrisy? Okay, the statement that the very last statement was that they weren't going to arrest or charge the student, but they have a zero tolerance policy. Like, that's like polar opposite. That's like an oxymoron.
yeah.
So this makes me mad. This makes me mad in a lot of ways.
Well,
because
kids in school, both of us.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing. So for a million reasons. One, people our age would never even think of doing something like that back in the day. There was a lot more respect. It doesn't matter if the teacher was like a 98-year-old lady. Yeah, we would play pranks. I remember locking my substitute teacher out of the room. But like, never, ever, ever, would you assault a teacher like that? So what that tells you a lot about society. And then, like you just mentioned, we got kids in school, and I got a little girl who is not the most bold person in the world. My gosh. And I hate, and me, I'm not like the most I try to hold back when it comes to anger and violence. But you also know that if anything ever happened to my little girl, right, all bets are off.
I believe you. I've known you a long time. I guess the couple things, and you're going to see some relations. Another video that I have of why I think a lot of this has come about. Now we know it was growing.
Yes.
For a long time, we've seen that. We've seen the deviation from actually educating and accountability for a long time. I've seen it shifting in schools for the past 10 years. Everything from parents not being involved to, which obviously is a big part of it, right? If your children are acting that way, sometimes it's related a lot of ways to how the parents are at home, or to the fact that the kid may have no consequences. So, if a kid's well behaved at home, generally they're going to be well behaved at school for the most part. If the kid has no
Yeah,
respect at home for his parents or other people, he or she will have no respect for the teachers or administration at school as well,
I
right?
think a lot of this, there's a lot that could be said, and I think you're right. Most of it starts at home, and single parent families tend to have more issues with this sort of thing. Not necessarily, I mean, not necessarily because if you're a single mom or you're a single dad that you're not doing a good job, but let's face it, you know as well as I do that it's a hard enough job with two people. And so so I would say that that is a major contributing factor.
What would you say to the fact that, I mean, obviously we have a reaction to the fact that that first of all the violence happened, that the kids feel enabled enough to act out in school. Number two, no accountability, as was said in the newscast. The individual wants to press charges, clearly has the right to. So he's been told by the police that we're not going to do anything with this, arrest the kid, or no accountability whatsoever, because the administration of school district apparently doesn't want the PR, the press,
Yeah.
right, to show that it's school in a bad light or hold the school accountable. They just don't want it to get out at all, right? So I think it goes to a larger picture of school accountability, whether it's violence, whether it's indoctrination and telling your kids things they're not supposed to tell the kids, not letting parents know what's really going on. I wonder if the parents of that child were properly talked to and what actually happened. We don't even know any of that. Like, where's the accountability for anything?
Well, I mean, there's a million different things that we could contribute to this, but here's an example I like to use a lot when it comes to situations like this. You remember, you're old enough to remember Hurricane Katrina. As a matter of fact, I think, didn't we watch it together at Win when we worked together? I think it was you. Anyway, the reason why I bring that up is because once the city got flooded, New Orleans, to the point where not even the police could drive down the streets, what did you see? You saw the Superdome full of people, rapes, murders, assaults, thefts, on a level you haven't seen in that city in a long time,
Yeah, I would say
because there was no law.
right? Lawlessness.
And so and like you said, accountability. Now I am, like I said before, I'm not the type of person who wants a ton of laws and rules, but there's got to be some accountability for something like this.
Yeah, this is, I
So
mean, if you're a 17, 18-year-old kid, 6'2", 280, you're an adult.
mhm,
Damaged like an adult. And this is a 75-year-old substitute teacher. It's hard enough to get teachers as it is, right? So
yeah,
also you have a secondary issue here is, why would anybody in their right mind who has virtue and quality, who would want to be a teacher? They see
they
this stuff
go.
happening. There's no accountability. The kids do whatever they want to do. The administration covers it up. And who would want to be a teacher? We have a crisis with teachers. But yet, interesting thing is, John, though, our graduation rates have gone up from 79% in 2000 to 90%. So the kids are doing worse in school. They're not being educated. There's no accountability. There's no discipline at all. And yet, strangely, they're graduating. It's because they're pushing kids through without any sort of like real, like, what's the word for it? Social skills, or be accountable for social skills or lack of skills. It's an epidemic, in my opinion.
Now, I work with a lot of young people underneath me. And I'm going to say some of the people I work with are pretty bright kids. However, the majority of the people that are coming into the workplace can't make a decision to save their life. They call off more than anything I've ever seen, and usually within the first few weeks of being there. And the work ethic overall is terrible. So the consequence of a graduation rate that high, for no reason,
Yeah.
it's great if it's
Well,
legitimate.
guess what? Like Mike Roas, who Mike Rowe is, right?
Oh, yeah, I love that guy.
Right. He has talked about the fact that, okay, there's a third consequence here. I mentioned the accountability, lack of social skills, teachers not wanting to teach. But you have a third aspect is that these kids who go unprepared, whether it was COVID, which we'll discuss in a little bit, or this, they're going into society, graduating, but unprepared, okay, for real life. They're getting work, so that the domino effect is they don't get educated, they don't learn social skills or accountability skills. They go into society. Now you have a ripple effect that they get crappier jobs, doing manual labor, because they don't want to go into skilled labor or go to college or learn a trade of any kind. So we're sending these kids out in higher numbers now, higher graduation rates, which we know is bogus, to do jobs that are less skilled. So we're creating a very large unskilled sector of society. And these are the kids, these are people that are supposed to be taking over for us when we retire.
These are going to be the leaders. These are going to be the politicians.
Could be a leader at a restaurant, could be a leader, a politician. So many people that are uneducated. The bar has been lowered with so many institutions now and so many forms of government. You can become a city councilman, school board member, whatever, with almost no qualifications. So we're creating a society of like just such low standards.
Well, let's talk about this as well. What made this kid think that it was not only safe to assault the teacher, but that it was right? Because I guarantee you, in this kid's mind, he thought it was right. And so take a look at what these kids are being fed. Kids are being fed things like, you have been wronged. Society owes you. Society has done you wrong and done your people wrong and done your families wrong. And, and so as a consequence, kids grow up angry.
Yeah, there's rage there.
And so, yeah, if I thought that my whole life was being oppressed and that the society around me was purposely against me, I would be frustrated and mad too.
Yeah, I was not sure what this substitute teacher who comes out of retirement to teach, what he did wrong, which I don't think he did anything wrong. But you have these kids who are frustrated by the psychology of the world today. Lack of parental oversight at home. They come to school and they have a sense of lawlessness because they're never accountable, whether it's at home or school, for anything. And now, last thing I'm going to say is, again, the kid is not even being held accountable after all that. It's crazy. So I digress from that.
So real quick, I've said this for a while, right? You look at God and you look at the Bible, and you see, if you really research and analyze it, all people need three things. They need to be loved for who they are. They need to be accepted for who they are, but they need a purpose. Okay, and so what's happening is these kids aren't truly being loved, right? They're being shipped around. Their parents are frustrated with them. Whatever, and it's obvious that the politicians are using them, right, as a pawn. And they got no purpose. They're not given a purpose. They're not told you are important. You know, if you study, if you work hard, and you set yourself for a goal, you can have an impact on society. Instead,
Even parents of today, though, I see them in restaurants and some other places. They're on their phone, not paying attention to their kids.
yes,
They're not engaged.
yes,
So I go to the park with my kids, and I see all the parents but me with their faces in the phone, not interacting with the kids. The kids are doing like hitting other kids. There's no accountability. Hey, Johnny, don't do that. Right? There's nothing. There's nothing, and we're breeding a society of complete, just, I mean, brain dead. Like,
yes.
just
The
I don't know how to
parents.
describe it. It's scary because again, this is the generation and a group of people that are supposed to be taking the reins. So I'll leave it at that because we got more good
All
stuff.
right, we could go on and on for this.
I got something this is related to this, okay? So
All right, let's go.
so I got one of my favorite, well, he's become one of my favorite guys, Dr. Phil.
Dr. Phil.
I love him to death. So here we go.
All right, what's going on, Dr. Phil?
So fast forward to the report here. We'll have to cut this commercial too, John. Sorry for those.
Big sticks.
All
been
right,
on the
if you guys are
forefront over
hungry.
the last couple of months.
So I'm going to fast forward to this. Here we go.
10 years later, and the same agencies that knew that are the agencies that shut down the schools for 2 years. Who does that? Who takes away the support system for these children? Who takes them away and shuts it down? And by the way, when they shut it down, they stopped the mandated reporters from being able to see children that were being abused and sexually molested, and in fact sent them home and abandoned them to their abusers with no way to watch, and referrals dropped 50 to 60%. So
there was also a pandemic going on. They were trying to save
kids' lives. Remember, we know a lot of folks who died during this. So it wasn't, people weren't laying
Not
around
school
eating
children.
bond, but,
Well,
you know what? We're lucky. Maybe we're lucky they didn't, because we kept them out of the places that they could be sick, because no one wanted to believe we had an issue.
Are you saying no school children died of COVID?
I'm saying it was the safest group. They were the less vulnerable group, and they suffered and will suffer more from the mismanagement of COVID than they will from the exposure to COVID. And that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
All right, John. So
I love him.
I'm telling you, so the guy's turned a corner because he used to be sort of in the middle and, of course, his TV show, but he's so big
Yep.
that he's kind of like Joe Rogan, which is going to come up next, by the way, too. So he's so big that he can go on these shows and he can say whatever he wants now. This is where you can't be canceled. When you're at a certain level, you can't be canceled. So right on, this goes into what I was saying. So what he said before that part of the interview started was he was talking about 10 years ago, they knew all these things were happening to kids with mental issues and different things. And
Yeah.
these reporters and people like your wife that goes out and sees these kids, there was a lot going on. It was getting worse and worse and worse. They knew this mental health was an issue. And yet with all that information, they still shut the schools down knowing that the kids were not really vulnerable to COVID, got sick at very low numbers, had high immunities, and they still did it. So I want your opinion on this related, we just talked about with the mental health and the fact that parents' rights for, well, not just parents' rights, but the idea of kids being out of school, not learning social skills, parents not parenting at home because the parents were working remotely or not working at all, and they were having trouble with money. And the kids were on Zoom meetings in school. Half of them had the screens off or were sleeping. But I'd love to hear your opinion on this one because I know we probably agree on this one.
Oh, I think this is going to be the first video that we agree almost 100%. Okay, so first I'd like to address something that you had mentioned in passing just right now. So my wife, this is what she does for work, right? She works for Child Protective Services. And what you see during the summer is a big drop in the amount of reports. Why? Because schools are the major reporters of possible abuse. The teachers are what are called mandatory reporters. In other words, they have to report something if they think it's suspicious. it's mandatory. And so now you're keeping these kids out of school for almost 2 years. And if they are being abused, then it's not being reported. And who are they going to report it to? They're locked in their houses. Nobody's seeing the kids.
Yeah.
And second, you got people like you said, who are, whose paychecks are dwindling, and who are depressed because they're locked in the house, can have little contact with people. So now not only are the parents and guardians suffering mentally from this, but a lot of them now are becoming alcoholics.
I was gonna say, alcoholic beverage consumption was way up, and
Yeah,
some of us might have a casual drink and whatever, took advantage of some time off, but there's a level of abuse that comes to people that can't handle liquor, have a bad temper, right? When they're at home stuck with their kids, think about it.
yes.
This is a really big problem. Like you said, going home on the weekends, summer vacations, there's no reporting, right? So it happened for a year plus with COVID, but it's continued because they're so far behind and backlogged on things. School administrations are doing nothing to help right now because we have just this pile of problems socially and otherwise.
Now, the other thing that this, and I know from experience, not because I'm like some expert, but from experience, I know the effect that this was going to have, that this had on kids. One, because I have a child who is, socially awkward in a lot of ways, and I'm putting it mildly, right? You know that. And two, because at that point I was still working nights, so I sat in for the entire year and a half of school with my daughter, off camera, of course, so the teachers weren't seeing. And so I saw exactly what you were talking about. Kids falling asleep, kids playing video games while the teacher's trying to teach. I saw what the teachers were teaching, and it frustrated me, like angrily. How they were teaching, what they were teaching, or what they weren't teaching.
Well, and I think all of us had a little bit of sympathy for them the first month or two, because getting all that going was very difficult transitioning to it, right?
Yeah.
After a couple months, though, it never improved. It only got worse. And then you had some jurisdictions, in some states worse than others, of course, that were shutting down for a whole year continuous, year and a half. Some of them.
Well, with here in Clark County, my daughter was in second grade at the time, and she March of her second grade, about 3 months out from the end of the year, they shut down. So they had no school at all for the last 3 months. So that put them behind from an academic level. And then all of the next year was online. So you're talking a year and a half. They didn't get the last 3 months of the previous year. And one of the things I learned, because you know me, I like to talk, and I'll talk to the teachers and I'll ask a million questions. And what I found out was that the majority of this wasn't the teachers. It's the school district. And the teachers, at least in our school district, are like, their whole day is mandated. They have, they're mandated to the minute. 12 minutes of this subject, 15 minutes of that. And how they teach basically is mandated, which is why I'm glad the superintendent Jara is out, because he handled the situation terribly.
Controversial. I mean, he was the one that was in. I don't want to use a particular person as a scapegoat, because there's a lot that goes on with these teachers.
It wasn't just him, you're right.
Well, I mean, I think you have influence from teachers unions, from lobbyists, and certain states and certain counties are much worse than others. I can tell you the counties in California where I used to live or seen had some incredible, I think, incredibly overreaching oversight. I know it sounds a little strange.
Yes.
But, right, they had way too much power, and these weren't elected officials. Like it wasn't, as parents, we were stuck, right? You can't do this, you can't do that. And your kids were stuck at home, try to fight it. You were chastised, you wouldn't allow to talk, weren't allowed to get in groups, nothing, right? So, I mean, the reason I bring that up is obviously that's, COVID, that's, 3 years ago. Or wait.
It was more than that, I think, right?
My gosh, it's time.
2019. So,
That tells
okay.
you how long-term the effects are of that we're talking about the repercussions of it right now.
So, okay, so think about this. I'm not going to dwell on this, right? But think about the last video we did with these Satan worshipers, right? Praying over not only city board meetings, but I had mentioned Pensacola, Florida, where they were praying, Satan worshipers praying over a school board meeting. And
we'll have to circle back to that one.
Yeah, I don't want to spend, because we spent the whole video
There's
basically
a
on
lot
that.
going on, or I guess bottom line is between COVID, the overreach of administration, the teachers and the way they're teaching, our kids with no accountability and no real parenting and no real involvement of parents. That
Yes.
whole combination is like a recipe for disaster. And Dr. Phil is spot on.
I agree.
He couldn't be more right. He's going to say something else in this next video you're going to enjoy because again, it piggybacks off of this one. So let's delve into this one. This one was him over at Joe Rogan's show, which I also enjoy.
Oh, I love Joe Rogan.
Let's delve into
the best we could with what we knew at the time. No, you did not. You knew better than that. You knew that was not a risk to those children. You knew that that disease was not life-threatening to those healthy children, and you shut it down and sent them home and left them there for 2 years. Some of them locked up with their abusers, the rest of them dealing with anxiety, depression, loneliness, and suicide. You did it because you could, and you had no plan to reopen the schools. And that's where government's getting in the way of being healthy. That's where families are getting broken apart, and that pisses me off.
And it should. Why do you think they did it? What do you think the motivation behind keeping schools closed for that long was? Because it wasn't everywhere. It wasn't here. But it was in California.
Oh, my God.
My kids went back to school pretty quick. And there was also one of the reasons why I wanted to be here. They had a completely different attitude about what you could and couldn't do during COVID. But why would they ever want schools to be shut for 2 years? Like, what's the motivation behind it?
Well, and it wasn't just schools. I mean, they wiped out thousands of family businesses that had been in business 40, 50, 60, 70 years, most of which never came back. They operated on such a small margin. Mm-hmm. They're wiped out forever.
Yeah. So many, at one point in time, was 70% of Los Angeles restaurants.
Yeah. And then they spent $5.5 trillion counting stimulus checks, unemployment, extended unemployment benefits, 4.4 trillion of which went into savings and checkings account, which means they didn't need it. And then when they did spend it, they spent.
All right, John, let's unpack that for a moment. The reason I showed that, you can see how I'm building a case for something here.
Well, where is Joe Rogan out of? I thought it was in California, but obviously not.
Well, he moved to Florida 2 years ago, 2.5 years.
I figured that because that's the only state that I know of that operated the way he was describing.
That and probably Texas, Mississippi, Louisiana. Those southern states operated very differently. Not gonna rub it in, but those were all conservative states. But let's just get down to the nitty-gritty of it. Like, this ties in directly. You're talking about the anxiety and all that, but one that I want to bring up is one thing that isn't talked about as much as it should be is, as Dr. Phil mentioned, all the businesses that were closed, and of course the families, the kids whose parents, their family, their money, their income was tied to all those quote, what was the term? Non-essential businesses, right?
Yeah, non-essential.
Drive-through was essential. However, Joe's Pizza Shop, who has 5 employees who are now out of work, waiting for unemployment, and the family who relies on the income, they had to wait for these PPP loan fiascos to go on, right? Meanwhile, their mortgage was, overdue 4 months. They were at home stressed out, right? And that in turn affected their parenting as well. So businesses that closed, their employees, the families that own those businesses for years, it all trickled down because they were stressed out. Alcoholism, like you said, was way up. Drug use, abuse, getting mad at your kids, smacking them around, right?
Do
All of this as a
you
result.
remember? I know you remember because I remember you and I were still hanging out, face to face, despite all this. You
Oh,
remember
yeah.
how hard it was for people to get in touch with unemployment?
Oh, I helped my son. We did it for 6 months straight. And it opens at 7 a.m. We would start dialing at 6:30, hitting the repeat button. And
Yes.
you get through maybe on the 10th day, you'd sit there for a while and would say, okay, no, we filled up all the spots for today. Try back tomorrow. This went on for months.
Ridiculous. Ridiculous. And so I want to hit on something Dr. Phil had mentioned or Joe Rogan had asked.
I'm a big fan of him right now. I'm liking what he's saying.
Yes. Yes, I love. So, but I don't think Dr. Phil actually addressed it. But I remember you brought this to my attention, and I actually it was like a light bulb to me when we used to meet down the park and do that Bible study, right? And so Joe Rogan asked, "Why do you think they did it?" And you remember what you said?
Yeah, I said I think that they were testing the waters. They wanted to see what
Yes.
they could get away with, how far they could push people, what freedoms and things they could take away before we
Yes.
protested.
So, you're absolutely right. It's a test. It reminds me of the boiling frog. Right, you know the analogy, right? You put a frog in water every few hours. You turn it up 1 degree, and by the time he's boiling, he doesn't realize it. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Like you said, they're testing the waters. They want to know what they can get away with, and now they know. Because I remember at the time you were more active on Facebook than you are now.
Oh
How many people did we know? That said, "Oh, I don't trust the government. F the government." Doesn't matter if they were liberal or conservative. They were. I don't trust the government, but the government says your health is in danger. Everybody all of a sudden trusts the government.
Yeah, we're all in this together was probably the worst single slogan. It was part of our downfall. We're in this together. I don't even like hearing it today because it basically says it's like groupthink, right? Oh,
yeah.
Well, the government has your best interests at heart. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Not in a million years.
Yeah, that's the most ridiculous. And I'm going to say this. I say it all the time. It's nothing new. Do you think that any one of these guys, except for maybe one or two, actually care about you? And it doesn't matter, if it's the people that I agree with. Technically, I know these guys are full of shit, and I know these guys.
Some care, but they're so jaded and so afraid to say anything nowadays because they're either called anti-vaxxers or called some name or put in some category.
Yeah, but the percentage is small. They're all you can't. I'm not going to generalize everybody, but the majority of these people are in for the power, right? And so, yeah, okay, you're right. There are some people, and the few that do care can't do anything because they get into Congress, and then all of a sudden they say, "Well, we're not going to pass any of your bills."
Well, my parents live in California. It's 73% Democratic. They vote no matter what. You can have a D by your name. You could be the worst person in the world. You get elected, right? As opposed to a Republican. Their vote means nothing.
Yeah.
It's a helpless, hopeless feeling. You can't fight the system if you're outnumbered 5-1. If you're outnumbered 10-1, like in New York or Chicago, you can't fight the system. You can't say anything. Even if you are a good politician, even if you have good intentions, it's corrupted. They're power hungry, and good luck. Good luck. And that's why we need numbers. That's why we need people to rise up, whether it's in the name of God or in the name of doing the right thing. this country needs an awakening of epic proportions, and it needs to happen like now.
I agree. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. And the thing is, to bring this back to the original topic, all of this corruption and all of the stuff that we're seeing has an effect on the kids. And
As families as a whole, the whole family unit, which they've been trying to destroy for a while.
yeah, well, if you destroy the family, then you're destroying the very foundation of society.
Yeah, you can pick everybody apart, right? Everybody's in groups now. I'm in a group. You're in a group. We are educated white males, and there's uneducated white males, and there's uneducated urban males. They have all these categories. Everybody's in a category, in a space, right? That's the way to divide people, is to continue to put them into groups and to pit them against each other. And that's what's been going on.
Yes.
They tested that out, and they figured out that it works.
I remember years ago, I've been at my current job for about 10 plus years. So okay.
Segment's over.
About 12, 13 years ago, I used to listen to Glenn Beck, like, religiously. And it was during 2000. Wow, it was longer than it was crap. That was a long time ago. It was during the crash of 2008, the economic crash.
He was on Fox still, I believe, right?
Yep. And I used to listen to him on the radio, and he said that if we went into another depression, we wouldn't be able to come out. Why? Because of the breakdown in the family structure. Because in the original depression, people went to their family, their church, their community, and their friends for help. But now, with reliance on the government, they're going to the government for help. And I remember because
jobs too, there's way more government jobs than there ever was.
Yeah.
The government controls a lot of the jobs too. Think about it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's sad because we have power in Nevada here because we're kind of split half here. We can make change. If you're in California, New York, or Illinois, good luck. That's the problem. And so, I think you and I, we have to get the word out. That's what we're trying to do here with this show, is get the word out. I think you're trying to do it. I'm trying to do it via TikTok. See us on TikTok. We're on YouTube, of course, and to share with your friends. We want to get some momentum going. We can start making some change, some positive change. That's why we're doing this. We're not doing this for fame or money. We're doing this because we care. We have families, and we're dads that are just looking for the truth, as the title says. So, John, last 10 seconds for you.
Before we go, right? See this right here? 25th subscriber is going to get this. I know it's not like anything major. But we're just a couple of guys who don't have tons of money right now. Right, but we want to send the Bible to the 25th subscriber. So that's our little contest. So we want you to like and subscribe. And we also, of course, want to hear what you have to say. So leave comments even if you disagree. So with that, it's all on you to close us out.
Well, everybody have a great day. Do the right thing, tell the truth, be part of the truth, and be part of the solution, not the problem. And love your families. Take care, everybody.
See you later.